is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Vegas 70. We have Nikita Krylov going against Ryan Spann. I think we have 12 or 13 fights to break down. I think it's definitely an upgrade of a card from last week. I think there's going to be a lot of violence, and I'm looking forward to talking here on a Sunday with you guys in the chat with Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to this card?
Definitely looking forward to this card. The last card, there were some really high spots and there were some really low points, but going in, I think we knew that it was a very low level card. And on this one, I think once again, the UFC found a way to stick us with 6 or 7 debuting fighters on the same card. So, they're widening this roster at a pretty alarming clip here, because this has been every week this year where you look at one half of the spreadsheet and you see a bunch of divided by zeros because the person hasn't had any official UFC fights yet. So it's going to be an interesting card. But when I looked at this one, it's just, when you look at it on paper, it looks a lot better than last week's. I'm really looking forward to the main card and looking forward to seeing some of these debuting fighters that have got, a little bit of hype behind them. So it's going to be a very interesting card to break down. And I'm looking forward to getting into it with you in the chat.
Yeah, what did you say? There's like 7 or 8 debuting
I think there's
fighters?
7. We got Deaton debuting. We got Jose Johnson debuting. We got Haley Cowan debuting. We got Narulo Aliev debuting. We have Victor Martinez debuting. We've got Gabriella Fernandes debuting, and we've got Trevor Peek debuting. And there's going to be a Mike Malott sighting. So he fights once every 3 years, and we get to see him now. And then he'll go away until 2026, when we'll still be talking about him as a 35-year-old prospect.
Yeah, that dude never fights. But when he does fight, he's extremely fun to watch. So looking forward to that fight for sure.
Yeah.
Before we get started, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Check out the contest we run every Saturday on pubsportsradio.com. Be sure to enter. It is $100 to first each and every week. I was doing really good in the contest. I think I started like 7-0, like 8-0, something like that. And then it went like all downhill from the main card. Thought I had a chance, but got pretty closer nonetheless. So yeah, check that out. Also be sure to become a member here at Pub Sports if you have not already. But I say we get into it. Before we do, Weezy, I gotta say something. Man, last week you put on an impression. It was the first impression ever on Stat Diggers, and it was the Juan Camilo Ronderos impression. And Weezy, you inspired me. I thought it was a phenomenal impression. And last night, I was also inspired by a performance by someone in the name of Will Knight. And I was up late last night, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to do a Will Knight impression here for everybody in the chat. I think it's going to be a nice treat. So here we go. My William Knight impression. This is William Knight at UFC Vegas 69. Let's begin.
It's a dead-on impression. It's like looking at William Knight. I mean, you can't even tell the difference.
My leg, and scene. How'd I do, Weezy? I know.
See, that's the thing, Brady. When you do something too often, you water it down. That's why when you only pull out the impressions when you can actually nail it. That, like, I nailed that Ronderos impression. It almost looked like I might have had some experience with that drug, and of course, I've never done it. Okay, but it might have looked like I did because I worked on that impression. I felt like I could pull it off on the air. And if we're going to do it on Pub Sports Radio, it's going to have to be good. That was well done, my friend. That was like looking at William Knight at UFC Vegas 69. It was a perfect impression.
Thank you, Weezy. Thank you, chat. I was gonna go the full 2 hours, but I think we should talk about these fights, Weezy. But yeah, I was gonna go for the full 2 hours, but let's talk some fights instead. All right, so we will start with the first fight on the card, Weezy. We got Joe Solecki going against Carl Deaton the third. We got Joe Solecki, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. Carl Deaton the third, he is 33 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. We have Solecki, who is 4 years younger, 3-inch height advantage, and a 3-inch reach advantage. We got Joe Solecki, who is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a decision win against Matt Wyman, a submission win against Austin Hubbard, a decision win against Jim Miller, and then a decision loss against Jared Gordon, and then a decision win against Alex De Silva. As far as Carlos Deaton, he is 3-2, making his debut here, I believe, on somewhat short notice. Joe Solecki was supposed to fight somebody, but the other dude pulled out in steps Carl Deaton here. So, yeah, Weezy, should be a good fight, a tough fight, especially on short notice for Carl Deaton going against Joe Solecki. Joe Solecki is a pretty big favorite here. I think like the second biggest favorite on the card. Any thoughts on the first fight of the night here?
Yeah, first of all, this guy Deaton, not a great haircut. It looks like he's got like a really power mullet where he's like shaved on the top and then there's like a line in the back and then it's just flowing in the back like there's a party going on back there. But he's an American top team guy and he's super experienced. He's got 22 professional fights. So, and he's been fighting all over the place. Like he's been in PFL. He's been in WXC. He's been in Big John's MMA. He's been in the 864 Fighting Championship, HFC, NATO, BXC, which is the Berserker Extreme Championship for those who don't know, RFA, live MMA at Seven Clans Casino, Mecca 5. So, I mean, like, but he's just, it looks like this guy will take a fight whenever, and just, he's lost to some names. Vince Murdoch. He's got a 5-round no contest with Jose Chepe Mariscal. He's got 2 wins over Nasty Nate Williams by decision. One of them 3 rounds, one of them 5 rounds. He's most recently beat Justin James back in 2022 in February. So just about a year ago, he beat Justin James. And then after that, in WXC, he got a win over Antoine Blassingame, who's 7-8. So it looks like the guy's been around. He's lost 2 of his last 4 fights, but they're both by decision. And then you got Joe Solecki. And Solecki was supposed to fight Benoit Saint Denis here. And we do know some things about Solecki. The guy's grappling game is definitely on point. He's winning about 75% of the control time positions that he's in. And he's getting 55% control time and allowing 19%. So you can control Solecki on the ground if you get a reverse or if you get a takedown. He has been taken down once, but if you look at Solecki, 22 takedown attempts for Solecki, and his opponents have only attempted 2. So we know that Solecki was already preparing for a grappler in Benoit Saint Denis for this fight. So that would have been another really good fight. Unfortunately, a lot of these fights, have been dropping off. People get hurt in this sport. But I don't know what to say about Deaton, though, because I still haven't been able to watch tape on him because I'm still trying to catch up on all the other tape that I need to watch on the other 6 debuting fighters. And this fight just got made yesterday. So Carl Deaton III is 33 years old. He's 3 inches shorter, and he's got a 3-inch reach disadvantage here. He's taking the fight on short notice, and he's fighting Joe Solecki, who has been in there with Alex De Silva, Jared Gordon, Jim Miller, Austin Hubbard, the legendary handsome Matt Wyman. The guy's fought a higher level of competition. He's beaten a higher level of competition, and Joe he's got serviceable striking, but his grappling is good. I mean, 45% takedown accuracy, averaging 2.35 per 15 minutes, over 55% control time for, out controlling his opponents at almost a 3-to-1 ratio, and then beating good, experienced UFC competition. I don't know what we can do with this one, Brady, just because this line is already like minus 600 Solecki. So I don't know if we can find an angle to play this one.
Yeah, I mean, that haircut, dude. I'm looking at it right now. I've seen nothing like it. I don't think I have.
Yeah, it's unique, and
I
that's
like it.
putting it nicely, you know?
I mean, I don't know how to explain it. I guess we'll have to just all see on Saturday, but it's interesting. There's like nothing going on up front. There's like a party in the back. I don't know what's going on, but
It's a
I don't
very
mind.
aggressive haircut, and if he fights as aggressive as that haircut is, this guy might be a live dog on Saturday. But I've just got to watch tape on him. I've still got like 3 other fighters, debuting fighters, to still take my notes and watch tape on.
Yeah, by the way, that Saint Denis Solecki fight, that was going to be a phenomenal fight. Two guys I'm very, very high on. But yeah, we have Solecki is the favorite. He opened up minus 450, currently minus 550. We got Deaton open up plus 350, currently plus 400. We do have some props, mostly on 5 dimes, though. We got the fight goes decision, plus 135. The fight does a good decision, minus 175. Solecki there, biggest favorite on the card. Not much you can do there, Weezy.
Yeah, it's not much we can do. When we start to see some over/under props, maybe we can find something there. But this guy Deaton's been to a decision a lot. He's 4-2 in decisions, and he's only been finished once he's been finished twice in his career, and that's in 24 fights.
Yeah, he did get subbed, but it was almost like 10 years ago, like 2014, 2013. And then he got knocked out, I think, like 2013. So he hasn't been finished in a very long time. So, yeah, no strong lean for me one way or another, but the pick is definitely going to be Solecki to kick off the card. All right, we'll move on to an absolute banger here. I'm really looking forward to this one. We got Jose Johnson going against Garrett Armfield. We got Jose Johnson, 27 years old, 6 foot with a 71-inch reach. Garrett Armfield, 26 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. We got Armfield 1 year younger. We have Johnson with a really big 6-inch height advantage and then also a 1-inch reach advantage. Jose Johnson is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win on the Contender Series. I think he might have been a dog there against Jack Cartwright. And then Garrett Armfield is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut, I want to say, on short notice against David Onama and got submitted in the second round there. But yeah, Weezy, both these guys are very exciting. Both these guys are very dangerous. Jose Johnson, a ton of finishes on his record, and he's been finished a lot as well. So yeah, I like this guy. Weezy, any thoughts on this fight here? I think you're muted.
Yeah, this guy Johnson's very experienced, as you can tell. 22 fights, 15 wins, 7 losses, but he's been in there with a lot of guys that you would recognize. And dude, this guy Johnson, when you watch the tape on him, I wonder if some of the people that he's knocked out are actually still amongst the living, because he has absolutely hurt people badly. I was watching the tape on this dude last night. He beat Mo Miller via triangle, and Mo Miller's a very good wrestler. He slept Dulani Perry stiff with an overhand right. Absolute scary knockout there. Dulani didn't wake up for a long time there. This guy, Ryan McIntosh, that he beat, man, he landed an elbow to this dude's skull.
I saw that one.
You could hear the skull break. The referee, before the guy even quit, ran in and stopped the fight. And if you didn't hear that sound, you wouldn't know. It freaked the referee out, dude. That one. And then Pipe Vargas, he absolutely destroyed Pipe Vargas. But Rafael Costa, like, that dude didn't get up for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes after he got knocked out with Travis Brown style elbows from Jose Johnson. So the thing about Johnson that I saw on tape was he can be taken down, but he's long. And because he's long, he can get some submissions from his back that other people wouldn't be able to get. And if you're not training against really tall guys like Johnson, I mean, this guy's 6 feet tall, and he's fighting at bantamweight, for Christ's sake. So, it's very hard to find people to emulate what this guy brings in the cage. And he's nasty on the feet. He swings with really bad intentions, and he tends to hurt people. It's the elbows, it's the knees. And he also has a really good straight right that comes right down the pipe. So I do like Jose Johnson's power. But when I watch the tape on Armfield, he's got a really good functional MMA game. He is constantly pressuring. When he's boxing, he's just throwing in combination. And he's mixing in his wrestling. So whenever he does find that the pressure and the volume and the combinations aren't working, he'll just try to take you down and win minutes down there. And Armfield's been in there with some decent guys as well. The loss to Onama, was on short notice, up a weight class. And it seemed like he was doing a little bit of a favor because I think Garrett might have even trained with those Glory guys at some point. And I know he had fought in FAC at some point as well. So I think he has some kind of a connection with Krause from back in the day. But this is going to be a really interesting fight. Both of these guys are good finishers, and both of these guys are really good where their opponents are bad, in my opinion. So I could see violence happening here, but man, I'm telling you, you want to see some nasty knockouts. Go watch that Jose Johnson tape and check out the well, I mean, you can even see Leo Mana Martinez knock him out. He's just been in a lot of good fights, but you look at the resume on this guy Johnson, and he's definitely been around. You look at the losses, and they're all recognizable guys like Ronnie Lawrence. Let's see here. He's got 22 professional fights, and he's lost to Mana Martinez, Ronnie Lawrence, Armando Villarreal, Levi Moles, Casey Jones, Michael McDonald way back in the day, and then somebody named Chris Pham. But, he's also beaten some guys that you would recognize too. Ryan McIntosh, Pipe Vargas, Rafael Costa, Dre Miley, Mo Miller, Delani Perry, and then most recently Jack Cartwright on the Contender Series. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Jose Johnson, Dominican Republic, stand up and seeing him making his debut against Armfield, who's a really well put together mixed martial artist who is pretty good everywhere and pushes a pace and pressures his opponents. And I think Armfield's pressure in this fight, Brady, is going to be key against a guy like Johnson, who's so long that you just don't want to stay at kickboxing range with this guy because Johnson will be able to hit Armfield and Armfield won't be able to hit him. So Armfield naturally being a pressure fighter is going to be a good answer to Jose Johnson's length.
Yeah, I love this fight. I think both these guys are super exciting, and I kind of lean the violence route as well. Curious to see where that line is at. So no over under yet, but it looks like they're on it here. The fight goes decision plus 125. The fight doesn't go decision is minus 165. We have Armfield as the favorite. He opened up minus 150, currently minus 152. Jose Johnson opened up plus 130, currently plus 132. Minus 165. I'm curious to see where they open up that over under at 2.5 rounds. I might be taking a look at the under, but looks like they're kind of on the violence props as far as 5 dimes goes.
Yeah, and I'm looking at my prop template here, Brady. These guys, 19 of their 29 fights as professionals, which is 65.5%. So that you'd line it right around minus 190, I'd say, is what these guys finish, inside the distance in their pro careers. So the line looks fairly priced at this point, but I could see Armfield doing good things on the ground, and I could see Johnson doing great things in the clinch and on the feet. So interesting fight.
Absolutely. Very, very good prelim here. Underrated prelim, I'd say. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have Haley. Is it Cohen or Cowan? I think it's Cohen, right?
I think it's Cowan.
Haley Cowan going against Eileen Perez. We got Cowan, 31 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Perez, 28 years old, 5'5" with a 66-inch reach. We got Cowan, who's going to be 3 years older, but she's going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Cowan, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She had a decision win on the Contender Series. Perez, she is 3-1 disqualification. Was that DQ a win or a loss? I think it was a loss, right? Or was it a win?
For Aileen Perez, it was a loss, yes.
That was the fight.
She fouled her all over the place.
Was that the fight where she fouled her like 50 times?
Yes, exactly that.
Dude,
She poked her in the eye. She was crotch shots, illegal knees. I think she even was swearing at her. There were a lot of, bad things going on in that fight.
Yeah, there was like 50 fouls. But yeah, she got a DQ loss from that against Tamaris Vidal. But yeah, she made her debut against Stephanie Egger. She was talking a lot of crap, man. She was talking a really big game against Stephanie Egger, said she was going to fight for the title in the very near future. And then Egger went out there and subbed her. So yeah, I didn't really look into Cowan, but I do remember her a little bit from the Contender Series, but I know you dug pretty deep into this one.
Yeah, I watched all her tape. I like to watch all the tape, as much tape as I possibly can out of everybody that's debuting, so you can build up some notes on them and then, write it into your database so that you don't have to watch the same tape over and over and over again. But Cowan is somebody that's been an athlete for her entire life, like a competitive cheerleader, a gymnast in college that was a 2-time All-American, like those fitness competitions as well. So she's a natural athlete, a big girl, 5'9" is what she was originally listed at. Now it's 5'8", 67-inch reach, lean, tall, athletic, fast, explosive. But what she really does well in the cage is clinch control. She's really strong, like any gymnast has to be. She's just really strong for her size, and she does a great job of holding her opponent's back up against the cage. And sometimes she'll hold you there for 2-3 minutes, and then she'll finally get that takedown, and then she'll be able to work on top for a while. And with Ailin Perez, and also with Cowan, when you're at distance with her, you really need to watch those kicks. As a former gymnast, she's got amazing flexibility and speed, and she moves her own body around very well. So you see her head kicks get up there pretty quickly. And there is one highlight reel knockout of her in LFA, just absolutely destroying some girl with a head kick with the rear leg. So, and with Perez, she's kind of like the opposite. She's not built like Haley Cowan. She's got a big ass, wide hips, big, strong legs. While Cowan is just kind of like long and lean and strong everywhere. And Perez has got a great top game. She bullies you. She also does very well in the clinch because she's got such a strong lower half. And then she also does great work on top, ground and pound. She's nasty there. She finishes fights too. She's finished 6 of 7 fights. 5 of 7 wins inside the distance. And the ones that she's not, she's accruing a lot of top control time. But she against Egger looked to be the much better striker. And because she was pressuring, because she threw more volume and she threw with more purpose. But she's not a great striker, technically. She's really more of a bully and somebody that really gets takedowns and does her best work on top. So it's going to be interesting to see how Cowan deals with that. It's going to be interesting to see who's stronger in the clinch, because I could see Cowan just winning a bunch of minutes holding Ailin Perez up against the fence. And if Ailin, tires out, I think she's going to tire out before Haley does, because Haley's got really good conditioning. And Haley's been to decision quite a few times, and she's 3-0 in decisions. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I need to see I need to rewatch Ailin Perez's tape because it's been a minute since the Egger fight. So I want to see what else she does well. But as of right now, I think I'm leaning Ailin's ability to be able to get takedowns here and hold Haley down. But there's a lot of hype on Haley, but she's been in a couple of close decisions that I thought could have easily went the other way. The Leavitt fight and the Brittany Cloudy fight in particular.
Yeah, and we do see that Cohen it opened up plus 130. She's now minus 140. And then Ailin Perez opened up minus 150, and she's currently plus 120. So just a complete line flip here, Weezy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that when you watch the regional scene footage on Cowan, you kind of see why that money's coming in on her, because she's fighting in LFA. She's fighting, I think she might even have one fight in Invicta. But either way, she's fighting in, she's not fighting in some, Argentinian gym in front of 14 people where the cage isn't even as big as, this studio that I'm in. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. But if Ailin Perez can get her wrestling game going and get her top control game going, that's going to give Haley some problems for sure.
Yeah, I think in an MMA fight, Cowan probably gets it done. But if this was a twerk off to see who could shake their ass the best, I think I'd favor Perez.
Yeah, and that's with Cowan being a gymnast and a cheerleader. And that's saying something about Perez's ability to shake that ass, because she can absolutely do it.
Yeah, she's no Parker Porter, don't get me wrong.
No,
she can shake that ass for sure. All right.
Yeah.
Let us move on, Weezy. We'll move on to another newcomer. You're going to hear that like 8 times today. We have Rafael Alves going against Nurullo Aliev. We got Alves, 32 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Aliev, 22 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach. We have Aliev 10 years younger with a 2-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. We got Alves, who is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut, really tough debut against Damir Ismagulov. He won by submission against Mark Diakese, and then he got knocked out by Drew Dober his last time out. Aliev, of course, is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, and he's making his debut here against a very dangerous guy in Rafael Alves. But yeah, looks like there's some hype on this Aliev guy. Weezy, you looking at this guy at all?
Yeah, Tajikistan, stand up. You got your first UFC fighter here, Nurullo Aliev, and he's only 22 years old. This guy got a win on the Contender Series against Josh Wick in the first round. But prior to that, Brady, this guy's really not finishing anyone. He is a control grappler. He pressures on the feet. His nickname is the Tajik Eagle because he fights just like the Eagle, which is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Pressure on the feet, back you up to the cage, cut those angles to make sure that you don't circle out, and then he shoots in on that double, chains takedown attempts together until he gets you down, and then once he gets you down, he keeps you there. And he'll throw as much ground and pound as he possibly can while still ensuring that you don't get up. So this guy is a very good minute winner, this Nurullo Aliev. And when you watch the footage on him, he's not, just wrestling some guy. He's wrestling all these other Russians who want to wrestle him. And he's very easily winning those control time positions. So with Rafael Alves, you got a guy who throws with a ton of power on the feet, jumps guillotine all the time. So, Nurullo is going to have to be working his guillotine defense here for sure. But this guy Nurullo, ever since he kind of got some hype on him in Tajikistan, took a fight in Moscow just before he got to the UFC, won that fight, and then he wound up going over to Tiger Muay Thai, training with Fisayev, training with Kamaev. Then he went to Sanford MMA, and he did some grappling work with Gilbert Burns. So he's actually gotten out of Tajikistan now. He used to be at Kaizen MMA, but now he's training in some of the bigger gyms around the world. And it looks like, this guy's got the entire country of Tajikistan on his shoulders coming into this fight. And he's getting a guy in Alves who's got 26 professional fights. But you look at that record and you're like, man, 15-11, really? But Alves has been around for 15 years as a professional, started fighting basically at 16 or 17. And he's got a lot of early losses on his career, but the record looks a lot better if you look into the most recent stuff. And he's losing to guys like, Ismagulov and Dober, while beating guys like Diakese, and then some of the fights before that, on the regional scene, not bad wins either. But with Alves, you have to watch out for that early power, and you have to watch out for that guillotine. But I think Aliev, if he doesn't get guillotined here and if he doesn't get hurt on the feet, is just going to cruise to a decision here. But this is a moment winner against a minute winner here, and that's always a very interesting stylistic matchup. But, I think that this guy, Aliev, has got a pretty good ceiling and can be very difficult. It's just a style that's very difficult to deal with. And at 22 years old, he's going to be getting better and better. So can't wait to see this kid make his debut. And they're giving him a very experienced and a very dangerous opponent where if he makes any kind of mistake in this fight, he's probably going to get finished. So it's a very interesting. If Aliev is the favorite here, the finish-only prop on Alves might be a great look this week.
Yeah, Aliev is the favorite. He opened up -210, currently -170. Alves opened up +180, currently +145. And I agree with Mike here. I think this could be a very sneaky under bet here. It's a lightweight fight, and Rafael Alves, this guy's a killer be killed fighter. This guy's been finished 10 times in his career. Only lost once by decision. The only thing is Aliev's not much of a finisher. He won 4 or 5 fights in a row by decision. He got a knockout win his last fight out. But, he's young. He's improving. We could see improvements there. And Alves does gas out. And, I could see maybe a late finish from Aliev. So I might be taking a look at maybe a plus money under here. Looks like the fight doesn't go to decision is like minus 120 right now, just due to the fact that Alves is a killer be killed fighter there. But yeah, I like Aliev quite a bit. I think he's going to be the minute winner in this matchup, but Alves is dangerous anywhere the fight goes, and very early on as well. So Aliev's going to have to mind his P's and Q's early. If he's able to survive that first round, I think he wins, and I think Alves kind of crumbles like he tends to do. So yeah, I like Aliev here as well. I don't know if I'll be laying the minus 170 for a debuting fighter though.
Yeah, that's always very risky. A debuting fighter from Tajikistan who's only 22 years old. Against a guy with 26 fights, who's 32, who's been fighting since he was 16. Rafael Alves took his first pro fight when like Nurullo Aliev was like, just going to school for the first time in his life, kindergarten level.
Yeah. Can't wait for this guy. Can't wait for his debut. I think he's the real deal. I don't think he's like an Ash Kebab situation. I think he's the real deal. But it is a tough matchup. Rafael Alves he's no bum, but I think Aliev gets it done here. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Charles Johnson with that haircut stepping in once again on short notice, going against Ode Osbourne. We got Osbourne, 31 years old, 5'7" with a 73-inch reach. Charles Johnson, 32 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. We got Osbourne 1 year younger, and we got Charles Johnson with a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Ode Osbourne, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He knocked out Jerome Rivera. He got knocked out by Manel Kopp. He won a decision against CJ Vergara. He knocked out Zaruk Adashev, and then got knocked out by 40-year-old Tyson Nam his last time out. As far as Charles Johnson, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Muhammad Makayev, lost that fight by decision. Prior to that, he knocked out Carlos Moto, I think, in the 5th round there. He won a decision against Zalga Sumagulov, very controversial, but won it nonetheless. And then he went out there and finished Jimmy Flick by knockout his last time out. Looked really good in that Flick fight. But yeah, should be a really fun fight here. Weezy Charles Johnson stepping in on short notice, but there's no doubt in my mind, I think he is ready for this fight. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, Johnson's taller, but it's Osbourne with the 3-inch reach advantage. Southpaw versus switch stance. That's going to be interesting stylistically. You look at the experience numbers, they're very similar. I mean, Charles Johnson has half as many fights in the UFC as Ode Osbourne does, but he's actually got more minutes in the cage, which is pretty wild. Ode Osbourne has a 4.5-minute average fight time in the UFC level. So that is a very, very good under guide to track. But then when you look at Johnson, and it's 11.5 minutes. So they're both good finishers, about a 90% finish rate for Ode Osbourne and a 76% finish rate for Charles Johnson. And Ode has been finishing 4 of 5 pro losses, while Charles Johnson has never been finished. Both of these guys 500 overall in their decisions. When you look at the striking numbers, particularly the distance striking, it's Ode who's throwing a lot more volume than his opponents, and he's outlanding his opponents by a slightly larger margin at distance than Johnson has thus far. But Johnson's more accurate and more defensively responsible. And both of these guys, well, in particular, Ode Osbourne, 80% of his fights taking place at distance. While for Charles Johnson, it's only 53, but that's the Mokaev fight really kind of throwing that one off. If you throw that fight out, and you just look at the Flick and the Zhumagulov fights, it's a lot less of a percentage that he's spending in grappling positions. And you look at that, Mokaev, Zhumagulov, and Flick, he's seen 3 grapplers in a row. So it's going to be a different type of fight against Ode Osbourne, because Ode Osbourne's only completed 1 takedown in his 6 UFC fights. So, you're probably going to see this be a striking match, and it's going to be Ode with the reach advantage here. He's the southpaw. And Charles Johnson, really more of a volume guy. I think he kind of breaks people late in 5-round fights, but he's got to figure out a way to start faster. So I think that this is going to play out close. How do you see this one?
Yep. I think it could, man. Yeah, like you said, if Charles Johnson could start a little bit faster, I think that's a point of emphasis he made in his last fight against Jimmy Flick. He was talking about going out there and starting fast. And he did, and he looked really good. I think this guy has a lot of tools. I've never been completely high on Osbourne. I think he's fought some favorable competition, get some of his wins like a Jerome Rivera, guys like that. But, he's dangerous. He has a sneaky submission game. He doesn't really go to the wrestling, but, he has a submission game off his back. Lots of power on the feet as well. Getting knocked out by Tyson Dom wasn't the best look in the world, but we have Johnson here as a pretty big favorite. He opened up -160. He's currently -190. Ode Osbourne opened up +140. He's currently +165. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel like this could play out a lot closer than that line does indicate. I don't really see either guy. Do you see any, either guy going for takedowns in this one?
Yeah, I mean, probably not Charles Johnson, especially, with Ode having 5 wins by submission in his career and being really tall for the weight class. Like, they're listing Ode at 5'7". I think he's probably taller than that, man.
He's huge.
I mean, he was fighting at featherweight at one point, so I don't think he's 5'7". I think he's closer to Johnson's height at 5'9", and Johnson might not even be 5'9". But they're both big featherweights for sure. They're both long featherweights. And yeah, I don't think Johnson's going to try to take down Ode unless Ode hurts him, and Ode, he's landing a knockdown on 1.74% of the distance strikes that he's landing. That's 1.11 distance knockdowns per 15 minutes. So that's better than what Johnson's doing, but he's been knocked down as well. And he's getting knocked down at a little bit bigger rate because his opponents throw less. So, yeah, interesting stylistic matchup. These guys are well matched. And don't forget, it's Johnson that's taking the fight on short notice. Let me go look and see who he was originally supposed to face here, because Ode Osbourne was going to fight Dennis Bondar, that fraud. So, yeah, he was supposed to fight a grappler in Bondar. So this is a different change of plans now. So maybe Johnson is getting the right fight here, because this is going to be a change in game plan now for Ode Osbourne against a different type of fighter in Charles Johnson.
Yeah, typically I look for a fight doesn't go to decision lines in Ode Osbourne fights, but -195 they have it at the open.
Yeah, and featherweight fights flyweight fights only finish about 43% of the time. So that's a big number to be paying up for,
especially with somebody in Charles Johnson who's super durable. I don't think the guy's ever been knocked out. He's never been finished, I don't think.
No, he's very durable, absolutely, and he's been scheduled for 5-round fights a few times too. So the durability has been there for everybody to see.
Yeah, might lean over then. Maybe an over, because Charles Johnson is so durable. So, yep, we'll talk about that on probability tomorrow, though. All right, Weezy, let us keep moving on up the card. We have Jordan Leavitt going against Victor Martinez. We got Leavitt, 27 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Victor Martinez, 31 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. We got Leavitt 4 years younger, 1-inch height advantage, and a 1-inch reach advantage. We got Jordan Leavitt, who is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had that knockout win against Matt Wyman, that slam. He lost to Claudio Poyas by decision. He submitted Matt Sales. He went out there and got a decision win against Trey Ogden, and then he lost by submission to Paddy Pimblett. As far as Victor Martinez, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, and he's making his debut here. They love setting up Jordan Leavitt with strikers. They love these striker versus grappler matchups. It's all going to come down to, can Jordan Leavitt get this fight down to the mat? If he can, there's probably a good chance he gets a submission here. I think Martinez has been submitted before, and if he's not fight down to the mat, Weezy, it's going to look ugly. But Jordan Leavitt fights are always so hard to predict, always so hard to break down. This guy's a very unique guy, Weezy.
Yeah, he really is. His style and his combination of skill sets is very rare to see these days. He really is a specialist. His wrestling's just okay. His striking is below average. His conditioning is below average. But boy, if he gets takedowns, he takes a different grappling path than most people are used to seeing when they train. And because of that, he can tie you up in a web and put you into really weird positions and wind up winning because of it. And you can look at it in the finish numbers here, Brady. The stylistic components of this matchup are plain to see in the stats without even having to watch any tape. Of course, you got to watch tape, but you got Leavitt getting 60% of his wins by sub. You got and only 10% by knockout, and that was the slam knockout with Matt Wyman. Then you got Victor Martinez, who's got 0% of his wins by sub and 61% of his wins by knockout. And then he's been subbed in 2 of his 4 losses. And Jordan Leavitt's been subbed in 1 of his 2 losses. So, yeah, this is a striker versus grappler matchup. Leavitt's going to be really desperate to get this thing to the ground. And if he does, he could find a less traveled path to get the submission that he wants, and Victor Martinez probably won't be able to plan for it. And Victor Martinez making his UFC debut at 31 and a half years old, 13-4 record, 17 pro fights in 11 and a half years. So he's been very inactive. And he got a win over Jacob Rosales, who I remember being the first guy to get his ass shaved by Jonathan Pierce in the UFC cage with the DWCS performance. You remember when Pierce broke Rosales there at the end of the second round and beat him in the third? Well, yeah. Victor Martinez was the next guy up to beat up Rosales, and he beat him in a unanimous decision. So, yeah, I got to watch the tape on Martinez though. When you give me 8 debuting fighters, there's just not enough time in the day to watch all the tape. So I got to watch on Victor here, but. The stats tell us that this is a striker versus grappler matchup. So let's look and see where that fight doesn't go to decision is priced, because I'm going to be looking at an under here.
Yeah.
And, minus 145. So it's a little bit overpriced, 8.6% overpriced according to the benchmark, but 3 of 5 of Leavitt's fights at the UFC level have finished inside the distance. And it looks like my Victor Martinez stats didn't load, so I'm going to have to do that at some point. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I agree with Mushroom. The fight doesn't go. Could be something to look at. Striker versus grappler matchup. Martinez, if he's able to keep up on the feet, he can knock out Jordan Leavitt. And then if Leavitt's able to get the fight down to the mat, he can obviously sub Martinez there. So yeah, fight doesn't go, minus 145. Curious to see where they put that under 2.5. That's kind of where I'd lean. And I don't know. In terms of money line, I mean, a pick'em seems about right? Like, if Leavitt's able to get the fight down to the mat, he looks like a big favorite. If he's not, he looks like a big underdog. So, I mean, that's just how Jordan Leavitt fights go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just going to have to see how Martinez deals with it, and if that's where you got to watch the tape and be like, okay, every time that, Martinez faces a takedown, you put on your glasses and you go, okay, let's see what's happening here.
Yep, for sure. All right, that should be a fun fight. We'll move on to the next one. We have Jasmine Jasudavicius going against Gabriella Fernandes. We got Jasudavicius, who is 33 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. 29 years old, 5'6", with a 67.5-inch reach. We got Fernandes, 4 years younger. It's Jasudavicius with a 1-inch height advantage and a 0.5 inch of reach advantage. Jasmine Jasudavicius, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Kay Hansen, won that fight by decision, and then lost her last time out against Natalia Silva. As far as Fernandes, she is making her debut here, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Weezy, thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, Jasmine Jasudavicius made her pro debut after the age of 30. So she's almost 34 years old, and she's only been in the game for about 3.5 years, only 9 fights. So Fernandes, though, is 29 years old, and she's been doing this about 5 years. So she made her debut around 24. And they both have a very similar level of pro experience, though, at this point. But it's just that Gabriella is younger. And then you look at the finish stats. Gabriella finishing 3 of her 8 wins by submission, 3 of her 8 wins by knockout. And for Jasmine, it's 2 knockouts and 1 submission, but she's 4-2 in decisions in her career. So Jasmine's never been finished, and neither has Gabriella Fernandes in her career. Look at those distance striking numbers for Jasmine Jasudavicius in the UFC thus far. She lands 3.03 strikes per minute at distance that are distance strikes. She absorbs 7.07, a -4 significant strike differential. And she's been in there with Kay Hansen, who is not known for her striking. And then Natalia Silva, who's obviously a very good striker. But That's a big hole in Jasmine's game here. And then Jasmine only has 2 takedowns on 9 attempts. And she's been taken down 3 times on 10 attempts. But 9 takedown attempts for Jasmine, 10 takedown attempts for Jasmine's opponents. But Jasmine is winning 80% of the control time positions that she's in. So Jasmine's wrestling, whether it's offensive or defensive, and her defensive jiu-jitsu are both very good because she's never been finished and she's doing really well. Even when she gets taken down, she's doing well to either get reverses or to get back up. And she's getting way more control time when she's getting takedowns and reverses than what her opponents get against her when she is the one being taken down. So Jasmine is very efficient at being able to win minutes in the grappling exchanges here. So I haven't watched any tape on Gabriella Fernandes yet, but I know that she's an LFA champion. So she's faced a good level of regional scene competition, just like Jasmine did, coming in, facing girls like Elise Reed, Ashley Dean, Gabriella Gulfin. So, both of these ladies have some pretty good regional scene competition here. But Jasmine's just been fighting the better names recently, obviously. So I think that Jasmine is probably going to need to get takedowns, but I need to watch the tape on Gabriella Fernandes. When I'm looking at in her record, in that she has as many wins by submission as she does by KO, she might be the more well-rounded mixed martial artist here, because what I've seen from Jasmine on the feet isn't good.
All right, we got Fernandes opening up plus 145, currently minus 130. Jasudavicius opened up minus 170, currently plus 110. So another line flip here, money coming in on Fernandes. I think people might be pretty low on Jasudavicius after she took a complete shit her last time out.
Yeah, but that's against Natalia Silva, and that was the thing. That was Silva's debut. Silva had taken 3 years off. She had a bunch of fights when she was really young in her career. She took all that time off, and she looked like a completely different fighter. So I think a lot of people had expectations of Jasmine in that fight, where they were what they saw on tape from Natalia Silva was completely different Natalia Silva that showed up in the cage that day. So this could be a bounce back spot for Jasmine if she gets her wrestling game going here. But if this thing stays at range and Gabriella Fernandes is any good there, and she's shown efficiency on tape as to, her being able to stop takedowns and get some of her own, well, then, I can see why the line flipped, but I haven't watched the tape yet, so I don't really know what to tell you guys about the line.
Yep, fair enough. I got to get to the tape myself. This was going to be the last fight I did look into. So we'll have to see. I don't really think I'll be betting on this fight anyway, so we'll move on to the next one. We have one that I may have a bet on. We got Trevor Peek going against Eric Gonzalez. I think this is the main card opener as of now, but we got Peek is 28 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. Gonzalez, 31 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. We got Peek 3 years younger. It's going to be Gonzalez with a 5-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch height advantage. We got Gonzalez, who is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Jim Miller, lost that fight by second round knockout, and then lost in the first round to Terrence McKinney by submission. As far as Trevor Peek, he went out there and got a knockout win on the Contender Series in that second round. And yeah, this fight should be fun, Weezy. We have Trevor Peek, who's a guy that just goes in there like a complete wild man, trying to take your head off. No regards for any striking defense, any nothing. He just wants to go out there and knock you out. He does have some wrestling in his back pocket. He does have some solid cardio as well for the way he fights. So I like Peek quite a bit. Eric Gonzalez, I don't know how I feel about the guy. I think he's pretty hittable. Well, both guys are, but Gonzalez pretty hittable. I kind of question the durability. I kind of question the takedown defense. Really like what I see from Peek, but defensively, irresponsible kind of concerns me there. But I think somebody's probably getting knocked out here. I'm going to be looking at the under. Just a quick peek. It looks like it's like minus 350 already. So they're onto it, but maybe like an under 2.5, under 1.5. But I think there's violence here, and I do lean Peek. I like what I see from the guy, but I don't know if I'm going to lay this chalky price tag on him. Yeah,
when you watch the tape on this guy, if you bet an over in a Trevor Peek fight after watching his tape, you should be in a mental institution. This guy, and maybe Trevor Peek should be in a mental institution, because this guy fights like he's mental, like he's absolutely crazy. There's no technique at all. But this guy is tough as nails. When he swings, he's trying to kill you. And he's coming close in a couple of situations. Every knee, every elbow, he throws his overhand right like he's trying to throw a baseball through a brick wall. And he took a beating against Malik Lewis. He never once checked out mentally. He never once checked out physically. He kept coming, and I think he broke Malik Lewis by not breaking in the first round and wound up coming out in the second and just melting him. And that's what Trevor Peek does. Whether he's got you up against the cage and he's just trying to kill you with elbows and knees, whether he's at distance and he's throwing that nasty overhand right and those low leg kicks, or whether he's just sick of hitting you in the face, so he decides to pick you up over his head and slam you down like he's Hulk Hogan. Like, he does all of that shit. But like, striking coaches would be like, I'm not trying to teach this guy. And I don't think striking coaches should get anywhere near Trevor Peek. I think Trevor Peek's fine where he's at. He's one of the most violent, men that I've ever seen fight. And he's clearly that dude. He's clearly the guy. Like, they were telling a story about how he got his first 3 fights, which weren't even Tapology fights. Like, his friends said, "Hey, Trevor, you want to get into a fight?" And he said, "Yeah." And he just jumped in the truck and went. And he thought that he was just going to meet some other dude in a parking lot and fight him. But it was actually like a semi-sanctioned event. He wound up getting in a cage, and he wound up doing that 3 times in a row before he took his first like official sanctioned mixed martial arts fight. So, this is the kind of guy that you would, if you were his buddy, you'd be like, "Hey, you want to go get into a fight?" And he would be like, "Yeah, where are we going?" That would be his plans for the night. So, and then Gonzalez is a scrapper, 21 pro fights, 175 plus minutes in the pro cage, 14-7 record. He's fought some good guys on the regional scene. Rafa Garcia, Humberto Bandenay. He's been in there with Terrence McKinney and Jim Miller. Lost both of those fights, but he actually sparked Miller at one point in that fight. But, the numbers that you see from Gonzalez on the screen, like in the striking against McKinney, he landed 1 big shot against McKinney. And I think that was it. I think McKinney landed every other strike in that fight. So it's going to be, I don't think Eric Gonzalez can survive 7.5, 8 minutes Trevor Peek, because it doesn't look like Peek does everything well, but he's got an indomitable will. He will not quit. He's got a chin, and he's just really, really angry, really mean. You don't want to be in a cage with this Trevor Peek dude.
Yep, and that's why I like that. I like that under. I like that fight doesn't go, but they are onto it and a little bit more. I'm trying to find. Yeah, there it is. So the fight doesn't go is currently minus 350. They're probably going to open up the over under at 1.5 rounds. I might even take like the under depending on what it is. But yeah, violence here. If anything, Trevor Peek is a pretty decent sized favorite. Opened up minus 200. He's like minus 174. I see like minus 180. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on any props here or anything?
Peek's minus 180.
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you watch that Malik Lewis fight, Malik Lewis had him in all kinds of trouble, So, good technical fighters, up a couple notches from Trevor, probably will be able to finish him. But I don't think they're going to be able to knock him out unless the referee peels them off of him. They're going to have to probably submit him. And, Eric Gonzalez doesn't really submit anybody. He's going to have to knock out Trevor Peek, and I think you need to kill Trevor Peek to knock him out. Paul Felder, I remember him once saying when he was calling the Contender Series that the worst nightmare that he would have was he would be in a cage and fighting in a dream, and he would be landing his best shots in the dream, and the guy that he's hitting just won't go away, and he won't stop coming forward. And no matter how many times you hit him, he keeps coming and he breaks you. That's Trevor Peek. That's the guy that Paul Felder has nightmares about, So I can't wait to see Trevor Peek in the UFC cage. This guy really got me excited when I was watching his tape.
Same here. Same here. The guy fights like a complete madman. It's gonna be awesome. He's like a fights like a Terrence McKinney, which is gonna be fun. So
A Terrence McKinney that won't die.
yes,
You
yeah,
know, that's
yeah,
what he fights like. So it's going to be so much fun. You guys, you have to watch Trevor Peek fight. And if you get the opportunity, please watch his tape. You're going to be a fan of this guy.
absolutely. All right, let's keep moving on. We have Mike Malott going against Yohan Lainesse. We got Malott, who is 31 years old, 6'1", with a 73-inch reach. Lainesse, 30 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. We have Lainesse 1 year younger, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. Mike Malott, he is 4-0 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Mickey Gall. Prior to that, he did get a submission win on the Contender Series in like less than a minute. Lainesse also is on the Contender Series. He got a knockout on the Contender Series. He made his debut against Gabe Green, lost that fight by second round KO, and then he lost to Darian Weeks by decision, but they ended up giving him the win there. This should be a fun fight. I'm a big fan of Mike Malott. I think this guy brings it each and every time he fights, which is not very often, but very good submission game, lots of power. He showed that off in his last fight. He's going to be taking on Lainesse, who has a lot of power in his own right. Not a big fan of the game of Lainesse. I mean, in his last fight, he went out there and literally put up like a William Knight-esque performance and ended up getting the win, but he didn't really do anything in that fight. He hits really hard, though. The power seems to taper off a little bit as the fight goes on. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I'm curious to see how Malott approaches this fight. He's going to go out there like like Weeks did and kind of take it slow, or is he going to go out there like Gabe Green did and kind of put it on Lainesse, make him work, and eventually finish him? I think it's going to be a really fun fight here, Weezy.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. Sean Strickland has fought more in the last 2 months than Mike Malott has fought in his entire pro career.
Crazy.
Think about that. This guy has had a 12-year pro career, and he's only fought 10 times. And in those 10 fights, the average fight time is 3 minutes. So I know nothing about Mike Malott. You know, I got more information on Sean Strickland in a 25-minute fight than I've only got a little more tape on that than on Mike Malott. And half of it is 7 years old. So I just don't know what to think of this guy. He's got half of his wins by submission. He's got half of his wins by knockout. He's been knocked out in his only loss. He has went to a decision once. It was a draw. And then Lainesse, you know, I mean, is a lot easier to cap. He's a power striker. He can mix in his wrestling, and he gasses. So he's either got to, you know, work on pacing himself, which is going to take away what made him dangerous in the first place, or he's got to embrace who he is. And I think if he embraces who he is, he knocks out Malott in the first round. Malott gets cracked a lot, but I don't know what to think of this guy. Everybody that trains with this guy says that he's the truth, that he's, you know, his ceiling is super high. But I mean, this guy can't want to fight. There's no way he can want to fight. How the fuck do you knock somebody out in 12 seconds and then be like, I need 2 years off?
I don't know.
You know, I mean, what is this guy doing? He's had 12 years of his career. He's fought 10 times, 30 minutes. So he's so good. Fight more, please. We want to see more of this guy. You know, but how long did it take him to beat Mickey Gall? 3 minutes?
A couple minutes, yeah.
What was that, like 2 years ago?
It was a while ago. I think it was like a year ago, but yeah, it was a while ago.
I mean, come on, Mike. Show up. Fight more, please. We'd like to see more of you. We could have I could form more of an opinion, but how do I know what's going to happen? You know, this guy could have added 3 new wrinkles to his game in the time that in the last 3 minutes that he took to shave Mickey Gall's ass. He could come out here and look even better against Lainesse. But Lainesse is younger. Lainesse is more powerful on the feet. Got a 3-inch reach advantage, and you know, Lainesse wants to fight. He's got 10 professional fights in 4.5 years. So looks like he's a little more game. He's a little more ready to go in there and perform. But this guy Malott's got a really high ceiling. And from what everybody says that trains with him, the guy is about as good as it gets.
Yep. Not a ton of tape out there on Malott. Like I was watching fights from like like 2015 with Malott, because there's just nothing to watch of the guy. But like I said, when he does fight, and the dude brings it, he's dangerous. And I'm just not a huge fan of this Lainesse guy. We'll see what the line is at. We have Mike Malott. Oh my gosh, he's a big favorite. Opened up as a minus 235 favorite. He's currently minus 220. Lainesse opened up plus 200. He's currently plus 185. The fight goes to decision plus 135. The fight doesn't go, is minus 175. I definitely be looking towards an under here. I'll pick Malott, but I don't know if I'm laying minus 220 on the guy.
Yeah, maybe an under 1.5 would just be a beautiful way to look at this. You know, Lainesse, an average fight time as a professional of 7.59 minutes. Malott, an average fight time of 3 minutes. But, you know, if you're thinking of laying minus 230 on Mike Malott, I would just suggest that you just bet him inside the distance. Wouldn't that be a better way to do this? I mean, Mike Mallott's never won a decision in his career. And if you're like, wow, Lainesse has got bad conditioning, well, how do you know what Mike Mallott's conditioning is like when he never leaves the first round? The only fight that's ever left the first round, it was a draw against a guy with a losing record. So don't tell me that Mallott's got the better conditioning, because you don't have any evidence of that, if that's what you're saying. We don't know who's got the better conditioning here, because Lainesse has been to decision 3 times in his career, and Mallott's been to decision only once in his career. So very, very interesting stylistic matchup here. I would not lay that kind of juice on Malott. I'd try to get something closer to evens that takes that win condition for him, which is 100% of Mike Mallott's wins are inside the distance, and 100% of Lainesse's career losses are inside the distance.
Yep, for sure. Violence on that one for sure. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have the long-awaited return of Tatiana Suarez going against Montana De La Rosa. We got Suarez, 32 years old, 5'5", with a 66-inch reach. We got De La Rosa, 28 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. We got De La Rosa, 4 years younger. We have De La Rosa with a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Suarez, she has 5-0 in her last 5 fights, a submission win against Amanda Cooper, a decision win against Viviane Pereira, a submission win against Alexa Grasso, a knockout win against Carla Esparza, and then a decision win against Nina Ansaroff. As far as Montana De La Rosa, a decision win against Mara Morella, a decision loss to Viviane Araújo, a draw against Mara Bueno Silva, a knockout win against Ariana Lipski, and then a decision loss to Macy Barber her last time out. So the big, giant elephant in the room is the fact that we have not seen Tatiana Suarez in a crazy long time. The last time we saw Tatiana Suarez in there was 3 years and 8 months ago against Nina Ansaroff, who is now Nina Muniz. Prior to that, it was Carla Esparza 4 years and 5 months ago. So it's a big, giant layoff here for Suarez. And she's like minus 800, minus 900. It just goes to show you what a lot of people think about her. But yeah, she's coming back, 32 years old now. But if she comes back and looks anything like she did, 4 years ago, she should run through Montana De La Rosa. I mean, I can't get that Carla Esparza performance out of my head where she went out there and just dominated somebody in Esparza, just destroyed her, took her down multiple times, just beat her up, and eventually TKO'd her. Yeah, as long as Suarez shows up looking like she did a couple years ago, I think she should win this fight. But laying minus 800 on a fighter that has not fought in almost 4 years, it's probably not the best idea. Weezy, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, and it's women's MMA. And you've got, a cancer survivor in Tatiana Suarez, who's been injured for 3.5 years, coming off a very serious knee surgery. She was training for the fight that she got hurt in, and it was the last fight, and she tore her ACL. So now that was another year on top of the 2.5 years that she was off and injured prior to that. So, I mean, it's just terrifying to lay that kind of juice on a women's fight when somebody's coming off that long of a layoff. But obviously there's tape to watch, and the tape to watch on Tatiana Suarez is, boy, you just don't see anybody ever having any success from her, ever. She's won 98.5% of the control time positions that she's been in. And she's spent 63.94 minutes of her cage time it's a 63.9 to 1 ratio of that's what she's winning control time positions to losing control time positions. She spends 75% of her 51 minutes in the UFC cage controlling her opponents, and she gets controlled less than 1.2% of the time. Now, Montana De La Rosa does good things there as well. Montana's out-controlling her opponents at a 3.27 to 1 ratio. She's winning over 76% of the control time positions that she's in. But, she's showing 63.64% takedown defense. And, Tatiana Suarez, her takedown offense is almost as good as Montana Rosa's defense, which is very rare that you see that. Usually, good takedown people are getting their takedowns 30 to 40% of the time. And good takedown defense is like 80%, In this case, you got Suarez with 63% takedown accuracy, and she's averaging 6.47 takedowns per 15 minutes over a 51-minute sample size at the UFC. So you can't unsee the tape, and you can't if you watch the tape, you're like, shit, man, this girl is the absolute truth. But the narrative issues, the 3.5 years off, the injuries, 32 years old now. Montana's 4 years younger than this girl. Montana's had like 6 or 7 fights since the last time Tatiana's fought. And there's all those things. They matter. Tatiana's going to be making this walk for the first time in 3.5 years, while Montana's been doing it 2-3 times a year, every year for the last 3-4 years. In there with Macy Barber, in there kicking Ariane Lipski's ass, Myra Bueno Silva, Viviane Araujo. She's been in there with some tough girls, and nobody's finishing her, by the way, in the UFC, that is. She got finished twice prior to the UFC. So, very interesting, but like Tatiana Suarez's numbers are just so eye-popping. You don't really see anybody putting up those kind of numbers in women's MMA anywhere in any weight class right now. So it's very, very good to see Tatiana Suarez back. Welcome back, Tatiana. We've been waiting for you.
We have been waiting a very, very long time, but she is back, and she is a big giant favorite. We got Tatiana Suarez opened up -700, currently -800. Montana De La Rosa opening up +500, currently +550. Fight goes to decision, -215. Fight doesn't go to decision, +165. I'll be playing a lot of Suarez on DraftKings, but that's about it.
Dude, she is a DraftKings monster. Like, she's like Jonathan Pierce, like she just gets takedown after takedown after takedown, always is finishing, and if she doesn't finish, she winds up with 8 takedowns, 13 minutes of control time, a bunch of strikes. She's DraftKings gold. Can't wait to see her back in there.
Absolutely. Same here. All right. We'll move on to the next fight. Before we do so, if you have not already, be sure to leave a like, subscribe here at Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time, to break down some fights, talk some stats, talk some haircuts, talk some asses as well. So we'll move on to the next fight. We got Augusto Sakai going against Dontel Mays. We got Sakai, 31 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. We got Mays, 31 years old, 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. We have Mays, who's going to have a 3-inch height advantage and also a 4-inch reach advantage. Sakai is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against the very handsome Bakul Ivanov, a knockout loss to Overeem, Rosenstruck, Tuivasa, and Spivak. As far as Dontel Mays, he is 2-2 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. He had a submission loss to Cyril Gahn, a submission loss to Nascimento, a decision win against Martinez, a knockout win against Parisian, and then that no contest decision loss to Hamdi Abdul-Wahab. So looking into this fight, I thought I might be betting on Sakai. I thought it might be a good bounce back spot for him. And I think it probably is, but this guy's lost 4 in a row to very good competition, though. Lost to Overeem by knockout in a main event. Lost to Jairzinho Rosenstruck in I believe a main event. And then lost to Tai Tuivasa by knockout. Lost to Sergey Spivak, who just beat Derek Lewis in a main event. So he's fighting, really good guys. Whereas Dontel Mays, he's beating, Josh Parisian and Roy Martinez. The thing that's keeping me off Sakai here, though, is the ground game. I have some serious concerns about his ground game. I think people have kind of figured it out that you could take this guy down and you can't do much about it. And I don't think Dontel Mays is the best wrestler in the world, but he has shown some ability to go out there and get takedowns. I think he's completing takedowns at like a 70% takedown accuracy thus far. So that's my one concern. But I think I'm gonna go Sakai here. But as far as betting the guy, it's just hard to have a ton of confidence in him at this point. Weezy, how do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, so you know what the thing about Mays is that he's just he's such a huge heavyweight, 6'6", 81-inch reach. And in Sakai, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach, but like 30 pounds of that Sakai weight is just sitting around his belly. He's not, Sakai could make 205 if he just went on a diet. Dontel Mays couldn't make 205 unless you cut off one of his legs, so he's just a big, big dude. Now, we saw Dontel lose a close fight to Hamdi Abdelwahab, who took the fight on short notice. And Hamdi's an Olympic wrestler. So he had a real background coming into that fight. But, we all kind of shit on Dontel Mays there because of the loss, but turns out Hamdi was on the gas for real. So, he fought a roided up guy who took the fight on short notice, who actually had a good wrestling skill set that was able to take Mays out of his game. But Mays came very close to finishing Hamdi there. And when you look at the distance striking numbers here, you see 4.02 landed for Augusto Sakai per minute at distance, 4.39 absorbed. And you see that Mays is throwing more volume. He's on point in terms of his accuracy is right there with Augusto Sakai's. His defense is a tick worse, but, he's spending 54% of his time at distance while Sakai is spending 70% of his time at distance. Now, both of these guys have takedown defense that's below 35%, but Mays actually goes for takedowns, and Sakai not really. Sakai's only gotten 1 in 8 fights, while Mays has gotten 7 in 5 fights. So it's going to be interesting. If Mays gets this fight to the ground, I don't think Sakai's getting back up. This is a true heavyweight on top of you. He could hold. Look, Parisian is a bigger guy than Sakai is, and he's heavier than what Sakai is. And we all saw what Mays was able to do to Parisian. And frankly, the ground game of Parisian is perfectly on par with Sakai. The takedown defense of Parisian is on par with Sakai. So why can't Dontel Mays do to Augusto Sakai exactly what he did to Josh Parisian? It's a very similar stylistic matchup, only that Sakai is a better striker than Mays and a lot more dangerous a better striker than Mays' opponent here, which is Sakai. Anyway, I think that Sakai is going to be better on the feet. I think he can win minutes on the feet. He can win moments on the feet. But I don't know if he can stop takedowns from Dontel Mays. And Mays is such a big dude that I think we could see Mays be much better on the ground here. And if he is much better on the ground, I think he'll be better than Sakai is on the ground. And the gap will be bigger there than it is on the feet, where Sakai is better than Mays. So I think I'm leaning Mays.
Yep. I'm definitely leaning the other side, but I don't know if I can trust him, because like you said, if Mays does get on top, Sakai's probably not getting up, and it could get bad fast. Yeah, it's a pick'em, straight pick'em. Looks like we have money's coming on Sakai, so it's not a pick'em no more. We have Sakai opening up plus 125, went to like minus 115 for a while, and it's currently Sakai minus 125. And then Dontel Mays opened up minus 145, went to minus 105, minus 115, and he's currently at plus 105. The fight goes to decision, plus 160. The fight doesn't go to decision, is minus 210. I did hop on the under earlier this morning, actually. I think it was like plus 140 for like 4 hours, and then all of a sudden it went to plus 110, minus 130, and it just got smashed. So beat the line move by almost a whole dollar, which only means it's going to go to decision. But yeah, I'm going with Sakai here, but especially now that I missed the line, I'm probably not going to get there.
Yeah, and by the time because I had to go out, I had to do all kinds of stuff earlier today. I had to go shopping, go out to breakfast, go to the target, all that stuff got done. And by the time I got back, that line was long gone. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I do see, you know, Sakai being dangerous on the feet. I see Mays being dangerous on the ground. Between these two guys, we've seen a lot of their fights end in the last 2.5 minutes of the fight. So maybe go for fight doesn't go if you're going to wait for all the lines to come out. But getting it at plus 140, that's a great line.
Yeah, and like the fight doesn't goes like minus 210. I wouldn't be probably laying that, but
Yeah.
so we have 2 fights left. We have André Muniz going against Brendan Allen. Great co-main event here. I'm looking forward to this one. We got André Muniz, 32 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. Brendan Allen, 27 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Allen 5 years younger, a 1-inch height advantage, and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. We got Muniz, who is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Antonio Hoyo, a submission win against Bartosz Fabinski, a submission win against Jacare Souza, a submission win against Eric Anders, and then a decision win against Uriah Hall. As far as Brendan Allen, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Punahele Soriano, a knockout loss to Chris Curtis, a submission win against Sam Alvey, a decision win against Jacob Malkoun, and then a submission win against Christoph Jocko. Very interesting fight here. We have a grappler in André Muniz, who's a phenomenal grappler. This guy's no joke on the mat, and he's able to get takedowns as well, which I like that. This guy, especially as of late, he's showing that wrestling's improving. A 44% takedown accuracy. When your BJJ's that good and you can get takedowns, I mean, this guy is super dangerous. Brendan Allen, a grappler as well, black belt, has kind of turned into a striker as of late, and he's going to need that striking in this matchup. He's not going to want to go down to the mat with André Muniz. Not saying Brendan Allen's some bum grappler, he's not, but you know, André Muniz's grappling's on a whole other level. Muniz is a pretty big favorite here. It's always hard to trust Brendan Allen to go out there and do smart things, but I'm really looking forward to this matchup, Weezy.
I am too. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're looking for some reasons to be on that dog there, he's almost 6 years younger. He's got just as many fights, but he's got a lot more UFC experience. And then you go over to the strength of schedule, right? Brendan Allen's fighting guys that have the same amount of experience as André Muniz, but André Muniz's opponents have got about an even win to loss ratio, while Brendan Allen's, fighting guys with a 1.5 win to loss ratio. And then also in the wins, he's beating guys with winning records while Muniz is beating these 500 fighters. The combined records of the guys that André Muniz has beaten, 30 wins, 29 losses. But for Brendan Allen, it's 51 wins and 40 losses. So, he's beating the better competition. He's fighting the better competition. And, while this is on the feet, I think Brendan Allen will be better. This is a guy who's been training at Sanford, for a long time. Now it's Kill Cliff. He's done good things on the feet. He's showing some good boxing. Went out there and outboxed Punahele Soriano for 3 rounds. That surprised everybody. But with Muniz, like, the distance striking numbers look really good. It's just that Brendan Allen spends a lot more time at distance. And if you look at the volume, Brendan Allen is throwing 12.5 significant strike attempts per minute at distance, while it's only 8.3 for Muniz. And then you can see that Muniz out volumes his opponents about 8.3 to 6.65, and he outlands his opponents at distance. And Brendan Allen absorbs a little bit more at distance. But the thing is that Brendan Allen's spending more time there, and he's throwing so much more volume that, we got to see how that goes, because I think Muniz he's in these lower volume fights because everybody's just worried about the takedown. And he's gotten 11 of his 25 takedowns. He's getting 4.14 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's attempting 2.63 submission attempts per 15 minutes. So, I don't know if Brendan Allen is that much better on the feet than André Muniz to make up for what's probably going to be the gap on the ground here, in that we did see Brendan Allen get taken down over and over and over again by Jacob Malkoun and lose a lot of minutes on the ground to him there. And the difference with André Muniz is, if André Muniz takes you down, you're in genuine trouble. With Malkoun, he's just going to lay on top of you until you get back up and not really do any damage. So this is if the Brendan Allen, when he beat Malkoun, was a very, very razor close fight. But I think Muniz is better on the feet than Malkoun, and he's way more dangerous on the ground than Malkoun. I just don't know if he's got the gas tank to push a wrestling heavy game plan for 3 rounds against Brendan Allen here. Very, very interesting matchup here. What do you think?
Yeah, I also thought that not only the Malkoun fight I thought was a pretty bad look for Allen, but the Dawkins fight where Doc was kind of out grappling him at times, and Allen kind of gassed out a little bit in that fight, lost that 3rd round. I just think this fight is going to hit the mat. I mean, I used to, I don't know, at first I was very high on Muniz, and I was kind of low on him, and now I'm kind of back on him. I mean, he's just showing improvements in that wrestling. Like that's the one thing. Also the cardio as well, the chin as well. But his cardio looked pretty good in his last fight. Was able to win that fight by decision. I think this fight hits the mat. Like Brendan Allen just has no takedown defense. He gives up the takedown like it's nothing. And if Muniz gets on top of you, there's going to be problems. So for Allen to win this fight, I kind of think he's going to have to either A, out grapple Muniz, which I don't see happening, or B, keep this standing, which I just think it's going to be tough to do. So I do lean Muniz. This fight actually opened up as a pick'em, believe it or not, -110 each way. Money poured in on Muniz. He's now -215 and still getting hit. We have Brendan Allen open up a pick'em. He is currently +184. The fight goes to decision, +170. The fight doesn't go to decision, is -230. I do lean Muniz. Not sure I'm laying -215 on him though, but yeah, this is a phenomenal co-main event.
It really is. Grappler versus grappler, and Muniz has just been white hot lately. So what better opponent to give him than a guy that's 8-2 in the UFC thus far and is still only 27 years old? You guys, imagine if Brendan Allen all of a sudden starts adding little wrinkles to the game and is still getting better at the tender young age of 27 in the middleweight weight class where, you can still be in your prime, 32, 33, 34 years old. Just keep that in mind. When you're betting against Brendan Allen, that this kid's good, man. And even in the regional scene, he was fighting Kevin Holland, Trevin Giles. This guy's been fighting really good competition since he ever first set foot in the cage, and he can still be getting better here. So it's gonna be a great co-main event.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that. And I also cannot wait for this main event. We have Nikita Krylov going against Ryan Spann. We have my internet not working as well. It's not.
Yours too?
It's not even loading. That is so weird. Trying to reconnect. There we go. All right.
Okay, good.
You're good to go now. So we have Nikita Krylov going against Ryan Spann. We got Krylov, 30 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. Spann, 31 years old, 6'5" with a 79-inch reach. We got Krylov 1 year younger. We have Spann with a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. We got Krylov is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a decision win against Johnny Walker, a decision loss to Magomed Ankalaev, a submission loss to Paul Craig, a knockout win against Alexander Gustafsson, a decision win against Volkan Oezdemir his last time out. As far as Ryan Spann, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss to Johnny Walker, a knockout win against Misha Serkinov, a submission loss to Anthony Smith, a submission win against Anku Dulaba, and then a knockout win against Dominic Reyes. Weezy, phenomenal main event here. 2 very dangerous guys. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, this has got violence written all over it. For a 5-round fight, the over-under is set at 1.5. This is a crazy good fight. I can't wait for it. So we've got, Krylov is not going to be as big as Ryan Spann. Spann is just an absolutely huge light heavyweight, fighting at a really good camp in Fortis MMA. But Krylov's been doing this for 10 years, right? And in 10 years, he's racked up 38 professional fights. This guy just wants to fight. He's fighting almost 4 times a year, which is just bonkers. And then Ryan Spann has got 28 fights, and his career is 10 years old today. So these guys are both very experienced. They're both incredible finishers. Krylov has finished 8 of his 10 UFC wins. Ryan Spann has finished 5 of his 7 UFC wins. Krylov has finished 93% of his professional wins inside the distance. And for Spann, it's 85%. So, yeah, these guys are incredible finishers, and they get finished too. Spann has been finished in 5 of 7 losses as a pro. And for Krylov, it's 7 of 9 losses. So the violence numbers here for a 5-round fight, fight doesn't go to decision, is probably going to be like -1,000. That's probably where it opens. I mean, can you imagine if this fight went 5 rounds, what it would look like? It would probably look like something like Jordan Wright and Zach Pauga looked like last night, which was just an absolutely brutal fight to watch, just brutal. But this one is not going to probably even get out of the first round. Can't wait for this. But look at those distance striking numbers for Nikita Krylov. 7.29 landed at distance, only 4.28 absorbed. He's knocking down people about 3 times as often as they're knocking him down. He's spending only 31% of his time at distance, but the time that he is spending there, he's throwing way more volume than his opponents, and he's landing way more strikes than his opponents. Spann is also busier at range, but he doesn't have nearly as good of a positive significant strike differential that Krylov does have at range. Spann and Krylov have very similar 35% takedown accuracy. It's Krylov who's getting more takedowns per 15. Neither one of these guys is doing a good job of stopping takedowns. 53% takedown defense for Krylov, 47% takedown defense for Spann. Let's see, we've got Krylov's winning 58% of the control time positions that he's in. For Spann, it's 56. The Krylov is fighting the better competition, beating the better brand of competition here. So, I mean, but this is such a well-matched fight. You know, Spann's bigger. He hits a little bit harder on the feet. He's got a killer guillotine. But Krylov has just fought everybody. You know, the fact that Spann's a huge light heavyweight won't bother him because Krylov spent such a huge part of his career fighting heavyweights and beating heavyweights. But yeah, this is a great one. I'm going to be looking for any way to play violence in this spot. And I think we could see Ryan Spann get an early choke here by guillotine. We could see Krylov get a knockout. But I'm going to, what was I going to say? I'm looking at the under 1.5, and it's around even money. I think that's a great bet. You know, I don't. Neither one of these guys really takes their time ever.
Yeah, I'd feel even better with like a 2.5 though, like maybe a nice 2.5, which is currently like minus 165 on 5 dimes.
Okay, yeah, that's what it's. What minus 165? Did you say?
Yeah.
Damn, dude, that ain't good. I'll take that over the 1.5 for sure. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, Krylov especially. I mean, both these guys fight like they're double parked, but especially Krylov. This guy comes out there like a madman in that first round.
Yeah, no concern for his own safety. He'll gladly jump into Paul Craig's guard. He'll stay on the feet with guys he shouldn't stay on the feet with. Man, Krylov's there to fight.
Yeah, Krylov's been subbed a ton, which kind of worries me in this matchup because Ryan Spann, he has a really good submission game, really good guillotine, and Krylov is going to put himself into some bad spots here. Like Krylov's been submitted 6 times out of his 9 losses, 10 losses.
Yeah, and Spann's plus money, man. So it's a very interesting look.
Yep, I think violence is the way to go. That's how I'm going to be attacking this one. We have Krylov. He is minus 170, opened up minus 150. Spann opened up plus 130. He's currently plus 145. Like you said, that under 1.5, minus 105. But on 5 dimes, it's plus 115 for the under 1.5. So yeah, if I can get a plus money under, I wouldn't hate that. The under 1.5 opened up this morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it opened up at plus 145, which is kind of crazy. It went to plus 110, and now it's minus 105. So I'm going to be waiting for some of these props to drop, but I think violence is probably the best way to play this main event.
Yeah, and you know, I see similar skill sets. You know, so and like Josh said in the chat, you know, Spann's on his way up, Krylov's on his way down. You know, but Spann is actually a little bit older. Can you believe that? Spann's the older man here. Nikita Krylov, 30 years, 11 months, 9 days, and he's had a 10-year career. And in that 10-year career, he's had 38 professional fights. What a madman. And Spann isn't far behind him with 28 professional fights in 10 years. This is a great main event.
Absolutely. And I think it's a pretty underrated card as well.
Yeah, I agree. I like the stylistic matchups on this card. A lot of newcomers, you know, so the stats weren't as much of a help this week than they would be, like, say, next week where we're going to see a lot more veterans. But this is an action-packed card, and there's some really interesting prospects on it. So I'm really looking forward to see how this shakes out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we did it, Weezy. We went through all, what was there 12 fights, 13 fights?
13, I think.
13 fights, a lot of newcomers, a lot of violence. I think it's going to be a fun card. Thank you all so much for watching. Weezy, let the people know where they can find you and what you have going on throughout this week for some content.
Yeah, so tomorrow you can check Brady and I out on the MMA Engine YouTube channel, where we will be taking a data-driven look at all the time props on this card. And I've already got my prop template ready to go, and some of these lines are starting to open now. So we're going to be looking to catch some openers, finding ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks on these time props. And then Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time on Uncle Weezy's channel, you can check me out, Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy. Go through all 13 of these fights from a stats and tape study perspective. I'll give you my track bets, and I'll give you Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, which last week was AJ Fletcher. Really good call there. That was inside the distance bet that cashed. Unfortunately, a lot of my other bets did not cash last night. Not a great week for me. But we always look to bounce back quick. That's why we do this show on Sundays. And, you can find me, Pub Sports Radio, MMA Engine, Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. Thank all you guys for spending your evening with us and watching Stat Diggers.
Yes, sir. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers, like Uncle Weezy said, tomorrow for probability, MMA Engine. I'll be posting my full card breakdown and prediction video maybe tomorrow, if not on Tuesday. But yeah, guys, best of luck for UFC Vegas 70. Should be a good card. And then we have a really good pay-per-view card in UFC 285 next week to look forward to as well. Good luck, guys. Like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. See you.